Good morning, everybody. I'm Alonzo Mourning, and it's truly a pleasure to be with you this morning. So, how did I decide to become a community developer? I don't think I ever really decided to become a community developer. I truly have seen the impact of being without a home and all of the tragedy and heartbreak that comes with that. Instead, I simply saw a need and decided to do something to address the need. Through my life experiences, I have been blessed to be able to help those in economically disadvantaged communities. My passion is to be of help to as many people as I can in developing affordable housing communities is an avenue that I have special access to due to my relationships with the Housing Trust Group. In the 1930s, the U.S. Department of the House of Urban Development, what we know as HUD, was created to alleviate some of the housing hardships caused by the Great Depression. In 1934, an act of Congress created the Federal Housing Administration, which established mortgage insurance programs which made low down payments and long-term mortgages possible. This, in effect, made home ownership affordable for a broader segment of the population. Shortly after, the U.S. Housing Act sought to address the housing needs of low-income Americans through public housing. The cost of operating public housing soon surpassed the revenue brought in from the residents paying deeply discounted rent. Unfortunately, this is the reality for any program that seeks to provide housing to people whose incomes are not enough to afford the prices in the general market. Affordable housing as we know it began in the late 1950s and continued in the 1960s with Congress creating a number of programs that leverage private investments to create new affordable rental housing. Also, subsidies to public housing agencies were provided beginning in the 1960s with the purpose of making up the difference between what the residents paid in rent and the cost of properly maintaining the property. Many movements and acts followed, including the Civil Rights Act, which were aimed at securing housing for people living at or below the poverty line, as well as making it illegal to discriminate against protected classes in private or public housing. Different presidential administrations have given varying priority to the fair housing provisions. However, the existence of the provisions has consistently provided leverage to those seeking to expand access to decent, affordable housing, especially for people of color. As with any federal program, federal housing programs grew and changed over the years based on the economic, social, cultural, and political circumstances of the times. In 1974, the Housing and Community Development Act made significant changes to housing programs and was the origin of the Section 8 rental assistance program that we are familiar with today. As we transition into the 1980s, there was a dramatic and striking increase in homelessness due to several factors, including economic changes, less institutionalizing of people with mental illnesses, and the decline in housing and other social supports for low-income people. In response to this disturbing phenomenon, Congress created the McKinney Act of 1987 to create new housing and social services programs within HUD, specially designed to address homelessness. Regardless of changes to the structure of many federal housing programs, no significant investment in new housing affordable to the lowest income citizens has been made in more than 30 years. There is still a tremendous shortage of housing affordable to people living at or below the poverty benchmark. Since the creation of Section 8 programs in the early 1970s, no new federal program has had the financial depth necessary to meet the needs of people with the greatest housing affordability burdens. Studies from the National Low Income Housing Coalition show that the federal investment in housing has not increased at a pace with the overall increase in the federal budget, and expenditures on housing go overwhelmingly to home ownership, not to rental housing for people with the greatest need. But there is hope. Housing advocates have worked for years for the establishment and funding of the National Housing Trust Fund, which will, once funded, build, preserve, and rehabilitate and operate affordable housing to extremely low-income people. President George W. Bush signed NHTF into law in 2008 as part of the Housing and Economic Recovery Act, but the original source of funding was suspended. The suspension was lifted in 2014, so the NHTF can now receive the money it needs to make their vision a reality for affordable housing for people who otherwise could not pay for a safe, decent, clean place to live. So again, I don't think I ever really decided to become a community developer. Understanding the history of affordable housing in our country and witnessing firsthand the tremendous need for this resource, I have chosen to leverage my platform in tandem with Housing Trust Group in an effort to address this dire community need. I have a community-first mindset which compels me to build bridges of opportunity and hope in our communities. Affordable housing and access to educational and wraparound services via my Overtown Youth Center are just two of the avenues I've pursued thus far. Many of you know of my work related to affordable housing. However, many of you don't know my plans for our organization to get involved in projects related to economic development or job creation, commercial retail, things of that nature. First, I look at affordable housing as stimulating economic development and job creation in a community as a whole, not just the final creation of the housing. For example, when I partnered with the Housing Trust Group on the development of our courtside apartments in Miami Overtown neighborhood, which we received a national award from, we stimulated further investment and revitalized the community on a broader scale. The development created local jobs, with 40% of the construction labor provided by local residents of the surrounding neighborhood. With the influx of residents, businesses were born and jobs were created. It was an elevation of an entire area and everyone benefited. Along with my partnership with Housing Trust Group, we have intentions to develop more and more affordable housing, understanding that not only is this great for the community, but affordable housing will create jobs across the spectrum of blue and white collar industries. Furthermore, phases 2 and 3 of courtside apartments are in the works as we speak. These phases will include senior living, apartments for children who age out of foster care, and some affordable housing. It will satisfy the need for affordable and safe living, as well as create employment opportunities. In essence, I don't look at affordable housing as just creating homes, which is vitally important. But I also see the tremendous benefit of indirectly creating jobs and businesses, as well as ushering in community ownership and pride. So I adopted Southeast Florida region as a home base to grow the organization's presence as a community developer. So I'm sure you all are asking the question, are there plans to expand beyond elsewhere? So to answer that, just know that Miami is my home, so I naturally can be more physically involved and see the results firsthand. Miami is one of the most expensive cities for renters, and the pandemic has only made things worse. The inequality in Miami cannot be overstated. Blacks and Latinos experience significantly greater housing insecurity than whites. However, my passion for helping people has no boundaries or borders. Across Florida, there is a shortage of rental homes affordable and available to extremely low-income households, those whose incomes are at or below the poverty line or 30% of their annual median income. Across Florida, there is a shortage of rental homes affordable and available for extremely low-income households, those whose incomes are at or below the poverty guideline or 30% of their annual median income. Many of these households are severely cost burdened, spending more than half of their income on housing. HUD defines cost burdened families as those who pay more than 30% of their income for housing. And many have difficulty affording necessities such as food, clothing, transportation, and medical care. Severe rent burden is defined as paying more than 50% of one's income on rent. Severely cost burdened households are more likely than other renters to sacrifice other necessities like healthy foods and health care to pay the rent and to experience unstable housing situations like evictions. Currently, 21% of renter households in Florida are in the extremely low income range. To put that in perspective, a family of 4 is classified as extremely low income, has a maximum income of $25,100 per year. That's for a family of 4. Compare that to the annual household income needed to afford a 2-bedroom rental home at HUD fair market rent rate. That annual income is $50,000 per year. In the great state of Florida, there's a shortfall of 400,000 affordable rental homes for extremely low-income renters. Think about that, 400,000. We need to at least develop that many for every family classified as extremely low income to have a clean, safe place to rent. Finally, and most sadly, 79% of extremely low income renter households in Florida have severe cost burdens. The Housing Trust Group and I are planning to address some of the stark realities of that data. So we are expanding our reach to Ocala, Florida, Oak Valley, where we are creating a rural senior housing development with 96 apartments for seniors age 62 and up. Also in Orlando, Lakeland, Florida, and Eustis over in there in that area, we will be partnering on a project for 110 apartments for seniors age 62 and up. And this is just the start. I would like to be a force for positive change by creating affordable housing communities as well as jobs in as many locations as possible. There is so much to be done, so much needed in so many places where we can be a vital resource to helping our communities become healthy, thriving, successful beacons of hope. Through the Mourning Family Foundation, I am committed to inspiring and empowering our youth and families in our communities. I am so blessed to have these opportunities, and I will continue to do the work that helps change the fabric of our community as it stands. God bless you all.